welcome everyone. If you have questions, please put them over in the chat, or if you want it in the Q&A, put your hand up. I'll loop back in for some questions along the way. But first, I'd really love to introduce our panel and have everybody have an opportunity to speak and explain just exactly what we do. First off, I know this is a panel that's called Cannabis Cultivation, but I'd like to look at this in really broad strokes, not just the actual cultivation of the beautiful plants in the soil or however other medium you may choose to work with, but also the cultivation of cannabis in regards to the movement, the plant spirit medicine, the community, and how we can help serve the environment as well in one fell swoop. So my name is Siobhan McCarthy. I'm the CEO of Blissful Alchemy. We are a DIY educational platform that really loves to empower patients to use every little piece of the plant. We also do a lot of formulation and specialize in topicals. And we are located here in beautiful British Columbia, and we also have an arm in wonderful Dublin, Ireland. So up first, I have my beautiful, amazing, talented friend, Kieley Beaudry, who I have the great privilege of working with right now with her amazing seeds and help bringing them to the legal marketplace so that everybody can normalize the use of this plant in their own backyard. Kieley, please introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do and how you like to make your difference in the cannabis space, please.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thanks for having me. I'm always honored to be asked to speak at events like this, and that really focuses on women and women in the space and women who grow and women who consume. I started Parkland Flower myself and my master grower, Dustin, 3 years ago. And you know, Parkland Flower has been really focused on cannabis cultivation for home growers. We have been providing seeds for the retail as well as the medical side. We are currently in 4 provinces across Canada, and we are one of the first micro cultivations to sell directly to some of those provinces, which is very exciting. You know, we started out in this space just really wanting to focus on the grower. You know, from an advocacy standpoint, it was the growers that really pushed for legalization, and we feel that that home cultivation has sort of been left to the wayside for that first year of recreational legalization. And you know, we really believe that that it will help to normalize and break that stigma and get more people involved in growing cannabis and enjoying the plant.
And I think what's great about what you're doing as well is that you have more than one offering in the seed world. So this is important. We can take advantage of the seasons. Right now, you've got your Northern Lights, which will be so great for stretching outside in the gorgeous summer sun. But when it comes more time for the fall, you've got your VK, your 1-to-1, which there isn't another 1-to-1 in the marketplace right now from a seed perspective. So I think that's really important. I know more and more people are embracing smoking CBD to help the cessation of getting off of tobacco. And so, you know, this is a really great entry point for somebody who might be making that transition out of tobacco into cannabis, but not necessarily wanting to be altered. They're wanting more of a calming effect. So it's really exciting that you can then have these offerings for more of the indoor growing season, because they're a little bit more squat. The Rudialis will kind of help keep them in that more bonsai approach to get the most out of them in a less kind of real estate environment, right? So very
a lot of our the market has been really focused on this high THC. That's what we've been seeing, and CBD products don't seem to be as common. We have seen that even the provinces, the provincial wholesalers, sort of dropped some of the CBD products, and then just as it was starting to gain momentum, they dropped some of these products, and now there's a demand for it, so they're rushing back to get more of these products in the doors. And what was unique about us putting out that V Kush was that we put it out in seeds as well as pre-roll format. So, which is of course one of the first times that's been seen on the market, which we're really excited about. Being able to try before you buy, or try something before, as you're growing it. And, it's just been, it's being in such a young industry, trying new things. It's just exciting to be a part of that. And also, for the love of the plant.
Absolutely. And what excites me is all the seniors that kind of knock on my door and who are looking for advice and mentorship in their growing experience. And, you're one of the few that actually have your telephone number and an email like right there if you have any questions. And I'm also really enjoying that you're kind of guaranteeing your seeds right now as well, right? Not anybody else is standing behind their product in the same way. So kudos to you, my friend, for that, and tenacity with integrity. It's like not always a match in our industry. So I just can't thank you enough for bringing such wonderful integrity to the community. And now I am super excited to introduce Sister Kate. This is a little bit of like a moment for me personally. I did have the pleasure of meeting many years ago at a conference, but it's always different when we're here more on a one-on-one scenario. Sister Kate, welcome to this wonderful conference. Can you please explain to us all about Sisters of the Valley? Are we there? I think you might be muted still.
Oh, sorry.
Can
you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. And thank you. And thank you for the work you do. What's it doing? Ask you to start my video. There we go. I think we're good now. Thank you for the good work you do. We're always excited to participate in anything that helps the women, because we've been at such a disadvantage, continue to be at a disadvantage. And to be fair, a lot of the working class is at a disadvantage. So when we're happy full moon, it's the ending of our willow moon medicine making cycle. And we make all our medicines by the cycles of the moon. And today's a full moon, and tonight, and that's why we're in our formal wear. Tonight we'll be in a ceremony with guests. And listening to the other woman speak, what's her name? Kieley?
Kieley.
I just wanted to comment that it's so different. And she made the comment that growers changed the laws in British Columbia, and it's so different in California, because really in California, it's the AIDS epidemic and the gay movement that changed the laws here in California. I just wanted to comment on that, and also to make an exclamation point on the work she's doing. She's developed a one-to-one seed. I think that's amazing and very, very brave of her to be standing behind her product, like you said. We sort of accomplished the same thing here, but we blend our CBD with our THC in a one-to-one manner in order to dilute the potency of the THC, and also to help people get off of addictions. I mean, that's for us the number one thing. So sorry, I had to comment on those. What did you want to know about us?
Oh, Sister Kate, I love the fact that you work with the moon. I think it's so important to kind of have homage and really honor the cycles of the moon and how our ancestors made their medicines with the cycle of the moon. It's definitely a process that I incorporate in the making of my products with the long-standing infusions. And I would just love for you to explain that a little bit more to our wonderful audience and potentially some of our other panelists who might not be aware of the ancient traditions of working with the cycles of the moon.
Yeah, I noticed when I first started in this business and I was running a collective, that was like in 2009 to 2012. And my growers were all Mexican growers. And I noticed they meditated with the plants, even though they're big, gruff guys who wouldn't stop and make small talk over anything. They meditated with their plants. They were respectful of their plants, and they harvested and planted based on the almanac and the cycles of the moon. So, it's not mine. It's just something I paid attention to. And then I paid attention to the women, because one woman, a man lost his job in the Central Valley, And then he started growing. And then the wife lost her job, so she started growing. This is around 2008. And she wanted equal but separate operations for her plants over his plants. And she meditated and prayed with her plants twice a day and ended up getting a 20% greater output. So I don't know what part plays the moon and what part plays our own infusion of spirituality into what we're doing. But all of those things were very influential on me and the forming of the sisterhood.
Absolutely. I love this. We don't touch the plant on quote unquote bad days. We love to bring the highest vibration possible to the plants. I often play music to my plants. We sing to them, especially when they're germinating from their seed stage and we're trying to get that taproot into play if they're a little bit stubborn and don't want to, or shy, so shall we say, and don't want to come to their full fruition. We like to ease them along with music. And I was always taught that singing is praying twice as hard. So I think there's an element of the vibrational component that comes forth through both meditation, prayer, and music. So it's just so wonderful to see.
And that's something we practice. That's exactly something we practice. We sing our chants and bless. We have periodic blessings of our plants, usually based on some turn of events. They're going from this room to that room, or from that room to these pots, or these pots out to the field.
And so how do you incorporate that in the harvest and the infusion process, or shall I say extraction process, if you don't mind sharing?
Actually, you were right the first time we infuse. So our whole line of products are coconut oil based, either liquid coconut oil or the stuff that solidifies. And our number one thing that supports us is our topical salve. And that's because people are actually using that to rub on their temples at night to help them sleep and get off their sleeping pills, and a bunch of other uses. We were aiming for joint and pain relief, and we just got a lot more than that. So how the moon cycles play, and like you were exactly spot on. The reason for making our medicine by the cycles of the moon is because it's a meditation and staying in touch with our ancient ancestors. And our holy days are the full moons and the solstice and equinoxes, what we call the four corners of the year. And those are where we acknowledge milestones and birthdays and people's 6th year from being off their addiction or whatever it is. Those gatherings are tribal and prayerful. We have a new moon gathering of all the sisters. So there's another 12 gatherings that happen every year, but those are private and quiet and totally optional on what the sisters want to do. It could be tarot readings, or it could be a Zoom conference call about business. So everything influences all our activity. Even our vendors speak to us in cycles of the moon. And that is very much a purpose. That, yes, we believe that the energies of the moon help us manifest as well. And we are much more, we don't get up at 4 a.m. or 6 a.m, get on our knees and pray. We're an organization that's all about women empowerment. We are trying to build ourselves out so that more women own more Sisters of the Valley around the world. We have a budding order in Denmark and in Brazil and in Mexico. Sister Luna here is from Mexico. So, but our idea is that we'll be like the Mormon Church, except cheaper. They pay us 10% on all product sales, and they set up their own shop so that all the women can get comfortable with ownership. And really, our passion is about women owning things because we think that's the painless way to fixing the world.
I think it's phenomenal. I was reading up on the website. I didn't realize that you also had components in India and all other places around the world. And I was just like, this is fantastic. And as well, to have an affiliate program, you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's in regards to finding the best way to get to the medicine to the people without having to dilute either the medicine or the meaning behind it. So I bow to you.
Right. But we're like on a mission about the plant. You know how Christians get stuck on the word? Well, the word to us is the magic of the cannabis plant, the adaptogen properties of the cannabis plant. So our uniform stands for a lot of things, and one of them is being zealots for this and trying to grow like missionaries around the planet so everyone can understand the medicine.
This is very, very beautiful. And I am loving that you're doing a whole plant infusion and working with all that wonderful aspects of the plant and not coming from an extraction process where we're isolating, that you're working really with the full plant as it's intended to be. And
we learned that the hard way. Like, we tried to do an isolate with the university in Italy back in 2016, and it was an epic fail. And that was such a lesson to us that this plant needs to be treated respectfully. And isolating components, though it's cool, it shows us master of the universe, us humans, is not necessarily the right thing to do.
It has its places, definitely, for sure. And I think it's always a wonderful way to be able to provide people with options. I myself am a big fan of whole plant infusion, so we're speaking the same language, but I also understand the other side and how certain patients...
No, I do too, and I'm excited about the isolation of THC. VA, is it the one that helps either stimulate your appetite? Is that the one?
THCA.
So for people who have trouble eating and where they don't have to get high or they don't have to mess around with the different, I'm excited about science. We're women of science, but our operation is all about keeping it simple and doing it like our ancient mothers did, by hand, from the garden to the kitchen to the people.
Amen. Amen.
Yes, I'd like to comment on that as well. Before, transitioning to the legal space, I worked with a lot of patients and cancer patients, and one of my I had a 6-year-old with brain cancer, and making a solventless extract directly from the plant and infusing it into a base that was also plant-based medicine, and the synergies of the oils and the plant-based medicines together, and he's a year in remission now. And when you had, right, and that's the beauty of this plant and how it brings people together. And I think it's just beautiful what you all do.
Thank you. Thank you. And likewise, we feel the same. Great respect.
It's amazing. It's beautiful to all come together with the same approaches to the medicine as women, as wise women, and how we have these alignments in our process, even though we're in different corners of the world. We should also open up now. I see that Laura has joined us over from Ireland. She was a little late on the call, but we should bring her into the fold and have her talk about her experience cultivating the plants and the culture of cannabis in Dublin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Lovely to see you all. It's lovely to be here. So I began cultivating a long time ago when I lived in Amsterdam, and that was where my indoor cultivation experience came from. Obviously, Ireland, it's still illegal in Ireland to grow cannabis without a full license. We are only allowed to grow one type of cannabis seed, which is the finola seed, and the hemp that's grown from that creates a CBD oil, which I have on my website. So it's the same process as you guys are using. There's a solvent-free process, and I would like to keep it like that because that is how the plant works best. And a lot of the work I do is really around the environmental side of the plant. So helping Mother Nature through growing this plant as a carbon sink, and this is kind of the message of Empire Yoga, is that we can use this plant for so many other resources, like paper, biofuel, bioplastic. So that's really where my focus is when it comes to using cannabis.
And the cannabis that is being grown by two beautiful people who are family-based. Do you want to give them credit for the amazing work that
absolutely.
They do?
The Wild Atlantic Hemp
bow to Laura and Daniel.
Look, these people are just waymakers in the west coast of Ireland. They grow on a family-run farm. They produce a really high-quality CBD oil, and they are very loyal to the soil. They are in the middle of a hemp for soil project where they are gathering data to prove how effective this plant is in healing the earth and in healing the land of toxins. So you're all familiar with the Chernobyl disaster and how hemp was planted there, and how effective it's been in correcting the soil and bringing the toxicity levels in that area way down. So Laura and Daniel in Wild Atlantic Hemp are working on a new project in Ireland to gather more data around that and really to push a movement from the roots up, where you're growing hemp as a form of cleaning the soil and beginning to heal the wounds in the earth.
Which is really, really important. I think the more we talk about the cultivation of cannabis, it needs to be addressed in this beautiful cycle that we're not just discussing the medicine, but also the wonderful capabilities of the bioplastics, the papers, the fibers, all of the other wonderful benefits that the plant brings to civilization as we can know it in a more sustainable way. So Laura, do you want to speak a little bit more to how you originally started with the Hemp Hire project before transitioning over to Hemp Hire Yoga?
Well, the Hemp Hire project was written originally for Social Entrepreneurs Ireland. So it was a project that was a sustainable, reliable, and economically viable solution to our current climate condition. So the project was a finalist. It didn't actually get funding in the end, but it led me then deeper down this road of utilizing the plant itself for the good of all. So it's really to educate people around the practical uses of cannabis and how we can use it in our everyday lives. So for example, one of the parts of the project was in relation to trees, and the average person in a lifetime flushes away 385 trees. So when you look at these sustainable forests, they serve a purpose, absolutely, but something as everyday use as toilet paper, let's say, it is a resource that would be grown in 5 months if you were growing hemp. You grow a sustainable tree, it takes about 7 to 10 years. Also, when the trees are cut, they release their carbon back into the atmosphere, whereas hemp, it holds on to the carbon and it stores it. And before 1883, the only paper that was used was hemp paper, which is something people aren't really aware of. And I think it's time now that as a community, we began to talk about this element, because our beautiful earth keeper, David Attenborough, he recently said, he gave a speech to the UN where he said we have about 10 to 15 years before this planet really becomes very, very sick. And I see cannabis as a way of helping everybody on the planet, all of our brothers and sisters. None of us are getting out of this alive. We are all on this same journey. We need to protect the earth that provides so much for us. She supports us, she feeds us. It is time to honor that and really hold her sacred, because she's a living being, as we all are. And we have a responsibility to her to help her recover and work in harmony with her, as opposed to against her, because she'll always win, hey?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that, as we have been moving into legalization on the recreational side, above and beyond what we've had already here on the medical side in Canada, we find ourselves, as Kieley can speak to, under rigorous restrictions and regulations. And a large part of that is packaging. And so I look forward to the day when we will be able to come back to the plant from an industrial packaging perspective, and the boxes and the labels and the actual bioplastic that the product is in, it comes from the plant itself. Sister Kate, do you have any ways to speak to any of the sustainability within what you're doing at the Sisters of the Valley and what you look forward to in the future?
I'm so glad you asked that. I just wanted to mention that about 2 weeks ago, we put an offer on a 20-acre farm. We only have a 1-acre farm here, so we've only ever been able to grow about 1/8 of an acre a year. And there's a 20-acre farm down the road with 3 houses on it that would be perfect for us. It is right next to a Foster Farms death factory that stinks up the whole area. So to me, growing hemp is a natural for the 17, 18 growable acres there. But there are so many ways that the game is rigged against us to get this mortgage. Apparently, America has a small farm crisis, but apparently it was engineered because 10 or 20 years ago, they stopped financing with guaranteed government-backed mortgages, farms that have houses on them. They stopped allowing that. So you have to take a 10 or 12% gangster loan or pay cash, which is why all our small farms are being gobbled up by the corporations. So we're in the middle of trying to figure out if we're going to get financing and get to make this actual hemp farm, or if the game's too rigged against us, but we're trying.
You know, Sister Kate, I'm really sorry to hear that you have this dilemma, and I really hope that it works out in your favor. I'll also let you know, similarly, a farm that I'm working at is also a privately owned farm that's surrounded by other farms that have all been gobbled up by big corporations. And so we have to have extra due diligence to make sure that we are definitely crossing all I's and dotting all I's and crossing all T's, and constantly being respectful so as to not put the farm owner offside with their potential of their farm and having it scooped up by all of the other corporations around if it's not being used for its intended purpose. And so it seems to be quite a tricky play for women to kind of have a economic foothold, which is why I really love your model in regards to constantly empowering female entrepreneurship through your ambassador programs, through your other divisions, and branches out, and just really trying to empower the women to be self-made, so to speak, through with the supports. And so, Kieley, can you also speak to the challenges that you've had in regards to capital components and, micro versus full-on experience, and the challenges and the growing pains of just being a female entrepreneur and maybe not always having the same access to capital as one would like and or need?
Yeah, it's interesting. I self-funded a portion of my facility. We are an indoor grow facility. We're in northern Canada, where twilight goes to midnight here in the summers, and then minus 40 degrees Celsius in the winter. So we did do an indoor cultivation facility. The challenge is, first of all, when I first went to my bank, who I banked with for over 20 years, owned homes with them, many investments with them. And when I asked to get a loan, their response was to send me a letter telling me that my risk profile had changed and they shut down all of my personal bank accounts. And so that was my first real taste of being a cannabis entrepreneur on the legal side. Of course, going to my lawyer to set up my company, his first question was, well, what does your husband think? And then just challenges throughout, not being taken seriously, being called emotional. And I mean, when you're in this space, I tell you, there is a lot of tears. There's a lot of elbow grease and hard work. And, it really comes down to perseverance.
Tenacity.
Tenacity. It's believing in what you're doing, and every challenge that you face, it's finding creative solutions around it. I approached many different organizations, and was one of the first cannabis companies to get a loan from a local. It's called Community Futures here in Alberta, it's, you exhaust all resources. I was also able to find some private financing, and got an investor that way. And it's just hitting the pavement, really just getting your brand out there, getting your name out there. That was also something, kind of getting ahead of even my license, because and generating like interest in the community, in our community surrounding it, and helping to build credibility around the idea. It's
and shifting that stigma. I mean, ultimately in the past, even as Sister Kate has mentioned, that it was the male growers that she originally kind of saw growing, and it's been a very male dominated industry, both on the regulated side and the non-regulated side. And with that has been affiliation, unfortunately, rightfully or wrongfully, with unthwarted behavior of gangs and organized crime. And it's like, organized crime making cream, so there's a bit of a difference in regards to intention. And I have no intention of holding a firearm. I have never wanted to, never will. And yet, and certain eyes might be lumped into the same grouping just based on my work with the plant. And so I think it's wonderful. Laura has talked about with the Hemp Hire Project, how she was able to apply through a government body to try and get support. Kieley, you've talked about futures as well, and local kind of government kind of financing support. Sister Kate, have there been any programs within your region that you've been able to go after government funding to kind of help change this profile of cannabis and women working with cannabis as a medicine in a very proactive, wonderful way, and not shooting guns and slinging cocaine?
Right. Yes, we've gotten federal government help through COVID. We've gotten several rounds of financial help to help pay salaries so that we wouldn't have to scale down when sales were low. So essentially, we had a loss last year, first time ever, but it was engineered on purpose to keep everybody in place. And because the government was generous in support with the PPP and other SBA programs, we were able to take that loss and sustain it and pay that off in the future on a low interest rate. So we're getting treated more and more like I used to, in the early days, 10 years ago, I'd rail and say this should be treated like dandelions, because dandelion roots are really good for cleaning your liver. So this should be as regulated as dandelions. And I would say that over and over again. And now we're kind of like regulated like dandelions, aren't we? And we're getting help like run the dandelion tincture business. And so, things have changed. But we also lost banking in 2019. We also went to our bank and asked for a mortgage, and they went, oh, not only can you not have a mortgage, but you got to be out of here in 30 days. And that caused us a crisis year. And then 2020 was a crisis year. So we're looking forward to things settling down on the earth plane, if that's possible.
And so I just would love to put this out there. I have mentioned this once or twice before in my experience as a broker and working in this wonderful capacity in cannabis. And I have found that this beautiful plant has a wonderful way of equalizing things. And if there's ever a time when people get a little bit too greedy or the intention goes a little sideways, that crop might not be as great, or the website pay mechanism doesn't want to work for you that month, or or you have, you know, your through Shopify, your website shut down, or your seeds are not quite feminized. Has anyone else found that the plant is a great equalizer to keep intention in line and in place in their experience? I think that's the spirituality of the plant.
We're just like you are. We protect the energies around the medicine. So there's no harsh music or harsh anything. The medicine is sacred to us, has to be protected. The plants are sacred to us. They have to be protected. It's why we don't even have any pets here, because the pets are not very respectful of our plants. We have cats. We have a ton of cats. Yeah. They don't smoke the weed.
It even comes down to the energy of the employees you have, the management you have. We've had experience with people working in our facility, and after they leave, the plants are dancing. Like literally, the change in the energy in the facility changes when that energy leaves. And so they know, and they know. One thing my grower has always said is that the best fertilizer is the shadow of the grower, and that person is so key to your operation and so key to cultivation, and also, but their energy and their passion is also what fertilizes the plants and makes them produce not just in chemical content, but in love and intention, and it's all synergistic in that sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, sorry, Siobhan.
No, that's all right.
I couldn't agree more. You know, the plants definitely feel that. You know, when you're in a grow room, you know, even when you're in a field, like over here at the moment, that energy is so present. And I think everybody working in the cannabis industry feels that on some level, that really couldn't be more true. And the plants do pick up on it. They pick up on the vibe, they pick up on what we send out, what music we play to them, how they're treated, what medium they're grown in. I always found a very different energy from a rock wool plant and an indoor grow in rock wool to a soil grow plant. I always kind of noticed that. And that's something that definitely the plant picks up on. Yeah.
And so, Kieley, you're growing indoor. Laura, you get to go visit down on the farm and they're outdoor. Sister Kate, you're outdoor. I'm curious with the outdoor component, are you doing any cross planting? What other crops or anything else are you bringing around?
Oh, yes. Actually, we do both now. Okay. We do outdoor and indoor, and it's mainly because we're surrounded by almond farms, and that almond dust gets in our plants. And so we do a little bit of indoor for our own smokable THC weed. And we're starting to make that like a part of every house design, that they have a small grow room in every house that we build and we remodel. So it's not huge. It's just like part of our life. And then outdoor, we can handle the almond dust because the plant goes through the cooking process and gets strained, and it's not a big deal in salves and in tinctures, but we don't want it on what we smoke.
Fair enough. That's awesome.
And as far as companion planting goes, because we've done such a small amount, we haven't really done it. I mean, we do grow other things. We grow our sage. This year we're growing sweetgrass. You're growing all kinds of vegetables. Oh, yeah. We grow our own vegetables. Yeah. We've never grown enough to can it because, you know, we're all so super busy. And I always say we grow more for the birds and the bees than we do for us. We'll just let it go back to the soil rather than stack it up, because we're on a farm in California and we can grow things all the time. So we're always pulling from the garden for our foods and our vegetables. The cannabis plants are one long season outdoor crop and 2 or 3 small indoor crops during the year.
Fantastic. And Am I allowed to ask which cultivars you're growing right now?
Yeah, what do we have? Well, we just harvested. We're actually in the process of trimming our indoor grow. We just harvested, and actually, Brother Rudy, he's the guy. He chooses the THC strains. We end up taking those THC strains and mixing them with CBD because we can't be that high. Is what Brother Rudy chooses to grow. We just can't. So we're all like lightweights, and we'll make it like a fourth of a joint with this stuff. But this year we have Mac 1 white runts, blue cookie, and what's the other one? Tropicana. Tropicana.
Beautiful. Oh, you got my mouth watering as we speak. I love working with fuchsias. Oh, they're so beautiful. I love growing fuchsias with my cannabis because they attract the wasps and the honeybees, which eat the aphids. So they tend to work as a wonderful natural.
We have a lot of naturally with the flowers and things we plant here. We have a lot of bees. We have a lot of ladybugs. Yes. We just naturally, this land, when I first bought this 1 acre little place, I was really looking for a place that never had murder on it, never had death, never had slaughter, because we live in cow world around us and chicken world where animal slaughter is part of the culture. And so we've always been rewarded for getting like clean land because it's always just had a lot of that naturally.
Yeah, and even in the farm that we're looking at acquiring,
God is willing.
God is willing is
God is willing, and banksters will get us financing.
Yeah, is next to that chicken slaughter place, and it's organic. The soil there is organic for us and ready for us, and we're just that there again. Just to mention, cannabis brings balance, and so that's what we want to do. Is we want to bring balance to that the farming community over on that other side, which is just down the road from us, and regenerative growing. That's our focus.
I'm doing a lot of regenerative growing myself right now at the farm, and definitely I grow all of my other ingredients as well through 3 different growing locations. And it's really important to me that seed to seal components and the alchemy of working with different plants and synergistic collaboration with one another. We did have a question pop up in the audience here, and I'm just going to quickly paraphrase it because I am dealing with not so happy eyes, unfortunately, right now as they're trying to heal. But the question is about the roots. And so I'm happy to bring it back to Sister Kate with what you had said of just wanting to be considered like the roots of the dandelions and just be kind of indoctrinated into the farming culture, never mind it just being cannabis, but just being included in. And so this question here is thoughts of you just using the roots medicinally, even though they don't contain the cannabinoids, they do have other medicinally relevant compounds. So have you ever utilized the roots in your process?
Yes, because we grow such a small amount here, we don't really get enough except a small bag out of our crop. But more and more, the other organic hemp farms have been bringing us their roots because they know we intend to combine that with dandelion roots and make like a hemp root dandelion root tea. We think that there will be some benefit to that. We don't know. We play with the product like everybody else, and we've developed products that have gone.
Well, when you look at the roots, I mean, that really is the heart of the plant, and that's where many of the cannabinoids and terpenes are really started. Like, they're full of sequesterpenes and so many other magical compounds that we haven't even, and flavonoids that haven't even really been looked at. I know it's used very extensively. Some companies are doing topical wise working with roots, and we're just the bird. It's so in its infancy still in the legal space that that research and development and all of the plant medicine that come from ancient practices. Similar to any plant medicines that are now used in modern medicine are now going to be able to be studied and proven. I think that's the big thing. Everything was about disproving the medicinal benefits for years and saying that it wasn't something that was good. And now that whole thing can be changed and evolve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think anytime I've worked with the roots, the cleaning of them is very similar to brushing out like when my hair dreads, and just it reminds me of like the Rastafarian approaches of like the very methodical kind of delicate components of, you know, I've got the finest of toothbrushes out and I'm sitting there trying to remove the dirt from the roots. It's definitely a meditative process, and it's not one that's going to be rushed because they're so delicate. Not exactly.
No, that's true. They're labor intensive, but I think that's part of putting the love in.
I agree. Especially when you're trying to peel them. It's like, how do you peel these roots? They're so fine. So fine. There's another question here for Kieley in regards to, it says, can you share which Canadian companies are working with roots? Do you know by chance?
There was a doctor in Vancouver, and I can't remember offhand. She's got a PhD. I know she was studying roots and topicals, and I can't remember her name offhand. I apologize. But I know that there's definitely some studies happening with regards to the roots for sure.
There was an LP as well that was focusing on roots. They were at Lift. The last Lift. I can't remember their name, but I do believe there are a few floating around in the space. Sorry, you were going to say?
I want to address a question that was asked really early on, and that was about my growing in containers. So I grow in sea cans. They are reused sea cans. So point for sustainability. And the reason we went with sea cans, number one, they were prefabricated from another company, another Canadian company. And financially, it was a way to go because I was able to finance them as equipment. I could, as opposed to putting the capital up front to build out grow rooms, I was able to finance it through a finance company. So that was a really big bonus because they could use it as collateral. Another advantage was the stackability. So now my footprint of my facility is only 4,000 square feet, but I gained an extra 1,200 square feet in canopy simply because I stack them. So it reduces my footprint and it reduced that. The other thing is that they're all self-contained, and all of the equipment that we use, any of the heat generated by the equipment is actually vented right into the facility space. In wintertime, we don't have a furnace. We don't have to turn on heat. So it actually, when it does get -30, -40 here in Alberta, it sustains -20 through a good portion of the winter. And then, so I'm actually able to use the heat generated from the rooms to heat my facility. And so that's another great advantage to those types, that style of growing. And then of course, just being able to have very separate, small grow environments when you're breeding, keeping everything contained in one small room, you're able to expand your cultivar spread, able to do different breeding in different rooms at different times, which was also a distinct advantage of doing that.
Fantastic. I think stacking them and really kind of getting the most out of your footprint is, it's optimal, right? Smart cookie.
Well, we even built all of our dry rooms, our vault. They're all sea containers, all reused. They were across the sea, and then they sit in the yard, and we get to reuse them and turn them into something that can be utilized and movable. That was another thing. If we wanted to expand, we are able to pick them up, put them on a truck, and move them to say a bigger footprint and build more. So that was another distinct advantage of container growing.
Amazing. Another question has popped up here from the audience from Anthony, and he was just wanting to ask, and it's probably more for the Sisters of the Valley in regards to curiosity of what cover crops are other cannabis farmers using currently and why, i.e. clover for nitrogen, mustard for beneficials, etc. Just curious if there are any other cover crops that are being utilized in your growing experience.
Not here, but like I said, we're only on a 1 acre. And the hemp farmers that are growing around us are also disappointingly monocropping. I mean, our mono farming has to do with the fact that we have 1/8 of an acre. And yes, we're not really mono farming because we grow a lot of our vegetables and we grow our sage and we grow our sweetgrass. We've got beds of dandelion roots being grown this year. But yeah, I think the farmers that we're getting our plant from are all still very much mono farming, and they're not doing anything impressive in regard to regeneration. And we personally don't know a lot about it because we have a small place to plant, which is why we want to get the bigger 17 acres so we can really see what we can grow. Like, is it okra that fits best under cannabis plants, or is it fields of clover? We don't know.
Only one way to find out is to try, I guess, and to ask lots of questions along the way. See what happens. I know. Yeah, I love to follow Josh and Kelly of. They do a really great job of talking about just the soil and biochar and regenerative components. They're just a really great couple that do a great job of it. So you might want to check them out. I think Tracy's just hopped on board. I think we're coming up to the end of our panel. I can't thank our amazing, esteemed panelists enough for your wonderful contributions to this great dialogue. I think the more and more we look at cannabis cultivation, not just necessarily the plant growing in the ground, but all of the other tendrils and roots and leaves stretching out into the flowers of our community, and how we can foster much more balance within this burgeoning industry as we move forward, and really honor the feminine, the divine feminine, and the wise women approaches to the medicine, so that we can continue with integrity and love.